Getting comfortable in front of the camera. Nice curly mustache. Ooh. What up, internet? So, CRPS, as we know, is incredibly painful, complex regional pain syndrome. But I'm here today to talk about some things that you wouldn't necessarily expect would hurt your CRPS loved one. So I've talked about kind of obvious things that hurt because it feels like your arm is on fire, so things like putting on clothes are very, very painful. But I wanted to talk about 5 things in no particular order that you wouldn't necessarily think, or it wouldn't occur to you initially, would be painful. So without further ado, let's begin. Number 1, breeze. Now you'd think with an arm that feels like it's burning and constantly on fire that a breeze would be, if anything, a welcome, cool effect. Like when you burn yourself, you go, ah. But when in reality, the breeze really feels more like you're taking your arm and rubbing someone with a sunburn as opposed to calmly and coolly blowing on it. So anytime it's even the least bit windy out, that's a problem. Then it means I gotta find a sleeve that also doesn't hurt to put on over my arm so the breeze doesn't hurt. So that's a weird one, but it's surprisingly uncomfortable. Uncomfortable is putting it lightly. This goofball wants to sit with me. Number 2, driving. And yes, that includes just riding in the car, even if you're not driving. And the reason for that would be the vibrations of the car. Even in super, super smooth cars with nice shock absorbers, that low vibration that you feel when you are moving in the vehicle just kind of rides up the arm and, feels like it's shaking it to the bone and just really, really upsetting it. And if I'm driving the car, that's worse because, of course, I'm obligated to keep my hands on the wheel, and that means I'm actively touching the vibrations as opposed to just sitting in it. And if there's bumps on the road, if there's any big speed bumps, if I can catch them ahead of time, I actually deliberately let go of the wheel and make sure that my arm is in mid-air, because a bump will hurt it as well. Also super strange, but that of course makes it really difficult to get around. I have to plan my days and my weeks accordingly. I can have plans to go somewhere, and the morning I wake up, that's just not going to be an option because it's going to be hurt way too much to get in the car. Going down the street in the car is painful, much less hopping in the car and going on a real legitimate errand. So that of course makes life incredibly difficult, and that's one to take into account if you have a loved one with CRPS. Limit traveling as much as you can because the vibrations are really, really painful. Even when my family members do little things like drumming their fingers on the kitchen table during dinner, my arms are on the table, that hurts. So, and you don't even think about that when you're doing it. Lots of people do that. Just little vibrations like that in anything, but the car is where it's most apparent, really, really hurt. So that's one that kind of throws a curveball into your day. Not super fun. Number 3, reading, which sounds also super weird, but the reason the reading hurts was actually a couple of reasons. The number 1 would be that it is completely and totally silent, usually when you're reading, and that silence gives your brain the opportunity to start yelling at you about how much your arm hurts. Normally throughout the day, I've got music on, the television on, the computer on, just so there's, even if I'm not watching it, there's just noise blasting, so I am actively, constantly drowning out that sound that my brain is giving me about, hey, by the way, it hurts. But when it's quiet, when I have to concentrate on the words in front of me, that gives it the opportunity to just scream from the top of its lungs and just remind you how bad your arm is feeling. And concentrating really on anything, but reading is what I found to be the most difficult for that. Just concentrating on anything with real active focus brings to attention how much pain you're in. It's like, it's like trying to read while someone's flicking me in the forehead. That's not going to happen. You're just not going to remember anything. You're not going to be able to do it. 10 minutes in, you're going to be like, screw this. This is dumb. Why am I doing this? And that's heartbreaking for me because I loved reading as a kid and a young adult. I was that kid who read the most pages in the class when they had that contest, and I wasn't even trying to win it. I just liked reading so much, and I just wrote down the books that I read. So that's a really, really hard one for me to personally deal with, just because that was something I really, really loved to do, and it's near impossible now. So for any of you who are wondering why your loved one can't remember things or concentrate as much, or they can read a book but not recall half of it 20 minutes later, that's why. Because not only are they on medication for their pain, so that also doesn't help. The medications I'm on make it very, very hard to concentrate. But then the pain, of course, on top of it is just the icing on that nasty cake. So it's really, really difficult. A lot of my loved ones when I was in the hospital were really, really sweet and brought books, of course, because that's what you think. When someone's lying in a bed doing nothing, they think, oh, this would be a good opportunity for her to read this book that I love. And as thoughtful as that was, I felt really bad because, well, I'm mostly not going to be able to read it. I have to turn on my computer and put on music or a goofy video. Just give me fluff. I can't read really deep, in-depth books. Anyway, number 3. That was number 3. Number 4 would be moving unrelated body parts that have nothing to do with my right arm. This is my left arm. Moving this right now is hurting my right arm. And the reason for that is because my arm isn't what's injured, my spinal cord is what's injured. And anytime I move any part of my body, that's using my spinal cord and that's sending signals to my body. In this case, sending incorrect ones to my arm that makes it hurt. So it's not just a question of not moving the arm that hurts as much as you normally would. I could walk around all day in a sling and not use the arm at all, and by the end of the day, my arm would hurt probably just as much as it would if I'd walked around and used the arm that day. Maybe a little less, but not by much at all. And that's a little hard for people to understand. And that might not be the case for everyone with CRPS because everyone's injury that is the point that the CRPS began is different. So it stems from a different part of the body. But in my case, since the cervical spinal cord was what was injured, any movement of any body part is going to activate that spinal cord that is now damaged and doing things wrong. So the best way to keep the pain from increasing as the day goes on is just to remain as still as possible, which, as you can imagine, gets really, really old really, really fast. So that, of course, I have to take into account everything I'm going to do for the entire day, because if I've got plans later with friends, I have to make sure that I'm not running around the house, just doing laundry or cleaning my room, because by the time nighttime rolls around, I'm not going to be able to go out. So it requires very, very careful planning of each and every day of your life to make sure that you can get to the things that you want to get to, that you can see your friends and go out, as long as you've given your body the rest and the preparation that it needs. So it's every day, every activity is just a process, because the least little bit of movement is going to increase that pain. It's a balancing act the entire time. So super, super wacky, and that is number 4. Last but not least, number 5. Number 5 is illness of any kind, which is weird, and that was probably the most surprising for me, is a chest cold will hurt my arm. My period will hurt my arm. It's just dumb natural stuff like that will set it off, even to the point where something as small as, like I said, a chest cold will send me to the emergency room because the pain is just intractable and unmanageable, and there's nothing we can do at home that manages it, even with all the medications that we've got. So as conscious as I was before about making sure that I washed my hands and used hand sanitizer and the whole shebang, I'm 100 times more diligent about that now than I used to be, because one little slip up and I'm in the emergency room getting pain medication. And that's obviously not what I want to do. So I wash my hands like nobody's business, even though that is, again, incredibly painful, but it's a decent trade in my mind if it means that it keeps me out of the ER. Surprisingly, in the last 5 years at least, I haven't really gotten sick that often. And the 2 or 3 times off the top of my head that I can think of were not things that I really could have prevented by doing regular health preventative stuff. So again, that's another thing you got to keep in mind and be really active and conscious about when you have CRPS, because you might not necessarily go to the ER like me, but any illness or weakness in your immune system is going to make that part of your body, whatever is affected by the CRPS, hurt that much more. So even the littlest cold is day ending, because you're sort of like you have the flu, even though you just have a little cough. So also very debilitating and kind of surprising until you're actually in it and realize that the littlest sickness makes things hurt. So that's it. That's my 5. And I hope that this video gave some people that little light bulb, like, oh gosh, that didn't even occur to me, because that was kind of the point. So you can be a little more conscious when you remember what it is that your loved one is going through every day, or if you have it yourself, what you are going through every day. And just remember how crazy life-altering this is, and it's really hard to remember that because for the most part this is on the inside. It's hard to see and realize that your loved one is really genuinely debilitated by this, but keeping those things in mind and realizing that those things add on and pile on to their pain throughout the day is a good thing, I think, to keep in mind, so you can, like I said, kind of plan accordingly and make sure that you can get to the things that you love, because that's really what's most important when you have a problem like this, is making sure that you can do as many things that you love, that you're still passionate about as possible. And I get that is so hard on just sitting up to do this video was an active talk in my head. I had to get myself out of bed and get myself in the tub and get my makeup on and sit in this chair. So I get it. I get that trying to do the things you want to do with this it feels impossible 99.99% of the time. But I'm hoping that with these little tips and these top things in mind, you can take those into account and try and keep on top of that pain, and then you will be able to manage to muster up the strength and the willpower to do the things that you find fun. So there's my dog, that's my cue, so I gotta go. So thanks so much for listening. If you have any tips or any comments, please feel free to shoot those down, because I love having a discussion and learning more. And I hope you guys have a wonderful day, and I will see you guys very soon. Bye.